Well, hello Story Chasers, this is Amber, and this is my dog Lily, who's got a little bit of stage fright today, I think. She doesn't like to be on the camera sometimes. So today we're talking about traveling with your pet. So I have the top things that you need to think about when you're traveling in an RV with your pets. So some of the topics are going to be about challenges that we face with our pet when we're traveling. I'm also going to talk about pet safety, which includes things like traveling in warmer climates. I'm going to talk about anxiety and fear that pets have sometimes when they travel and getting them acclimated to your RV versus your sticks and bricks house. And the other topic that I'm going to talk about is crossing the borders with your pet. So specifically, I'm going to talk about crossing the border to Canada and also Mexico, which we both have done. So sometimes there's a few little challenges with that, but if you know what to do, it's not going to be a problem at all for you. One of the other things we're going to do in this video is I'm going to do a giveaway, and the giveaway is going to be for something that I think will be very advantageous for you and for your pet for pet safety purposes. So stay tuned as I talk more about all of the things to travel with your pet and the challenges that we go through, and look at the requirements in the description box that says giveaway instructions for how to sign up for the giveaway, and I will be announcing the lucky winner in about a week after this video has published. All right guys, let's get started. So one of the things that you're going to see in this video is pictures and video clips of pets. Now, of course, these are not all my pets. My only pet that I travel with is Lily. These videos and these pictures came from my RVing friends who travel with their pets also. So I asked them to send me some clips and some pictures to show kind of how their dogs like this lifestyle and how they travel with them. I think you'll love seeing how these dogs live. I will tell you that I believe that dogs who RV have the best life ever because they get to see all of these wonderful places that we get to see too. They're out in nature, they're sniffing everything, and they absolutely love it, I think, just as much as we do. So the first topic I'm going to talk about is anxiety and fear that dogs have sometimes whenever they travel in an RV and are used to the stationary life in a sticks and bricks house. So Lily didn't really have this problem. She was really used to traveling with me all over the place, but I asked a couple of my RV friends what they have done, and some of them have said that traveling with their pet gave their dog some fear and anxiety because they just weren't used to an RV and they are actually scared of being in an RV or a traveling vehicle. So one of the things that you can do is when you're deciding to move into this lifestyle of traveling full-time in an RV is to start acclimating your pet to the RV. So you'll have your RV, you'll have purchased it, and you're starting to move things from your house into the RV. What you can do is take their food bowl and their water bowl and their bed and place it in the RV. So while you're moving things in and out of the RV and getting things situated, you can bring those items into the RV. Let them start smelling the things that they're familiar with in this new environment. Again, things like their water bowl, their food bowl, some toys, and their bed, so they can sleep in the RV while you're moving around. I know that was actually one of the things that really helped Lily in the beginning too. She was a little bit nervous because it was a new environment, and I brought her bedding out while I was moving things in and organizing, and she was able to smell those familiar things that she's really used to in this new environment, and I think it makes her feel a little bit more safe. Now, I'm not a pet behaviorist or anything like that. I'm just telling you what my observation is and what other people have told me that they have done for their pets. There's another thing that you can do if your pet has extreme anxiety. Well, there's actually two things. One is to get what's called a Thundershirt. Now, I actually used to use this on my dog Dylan whenever there was thunderstorms and lightning and things like that. He hated it. Like, he was freaked out by the thunderstorms. So I would put this Thundershirt on him, and it kind of cinches in tight. There's something about it being compressed against their body that makes them feel more secure, and that actually seemed to really work with him. So that's another tool that you can use if your pet has anxiety. You can put that Thundershirt on them, bring them in the RV along again with those familiar things, and hopefully they can get over that anxiety. One of the other things is whenever you get into a new spot in your RV, always take your pet outside immediately. Let them get familiar with the surroundings. Lily does that every single time we stop at a place. I make sure I open the sliding door and she jumps out and she smells everything and she does her business out there, and she kind of puts her scent on everything, and that seems to have helped her as well. So another thing that you can do is when you do get in your RV and you start to travel, it's always good to have a spot that your pet can sleep in all the time, like a dedicated space for them. It seems to help when they know that they can come to that same spot every single time when they're hopping in and out of the RV. They know that they can go to that one spot where they can sleep, their bedding is there, and it's the same spot every time. That seems to really help them as well. All right, so let's move on to the next topic, which is pet safety. So this is a big one. When you're out in the wilderness, out in the forest, out in rural lands, or even in urban areas, you're gonna have some things that could be detrimental to your pet. So let's talk about like if you're in a rural area. In rural areas and national forest, BLM land, you're gonna have birds of prey, you're gonna have coyotes, potentially bears, any kind of wildlife that could potentially not only harm you, but could also harm your pet. So specifically, we're talking about pets today. One thing that you can do is put a bell around their collar. So the bell will help alert any animal that might be around, that your pet is around. The bell hopefully will scare them off. And it also allows you to know where your pet is if you have this bell kind of dangling and chiming as they're walking around or running around. Sometimes the grass is really tall outside, and if you have a small pet like Lily, they're going to be weaving in and out of that grass and you're not going to be able to see them. So when you have that vegetation that's a little bit taller, you definitely want to have something on them where you can hear them. Another thing that I do almost every single time that I walk, and it really depends on the area, is I bring a walking stick with me. Now, the reason why I do this is because, again, Lily is small. There are snakes out there. That's the biggest reason that I do it, is for snakes. So if there's a snake in the path or we happen to come up on really quickly, I can take my stick and hopefully get that snake out of the way as quickly as possible. I certainly don't want to use my hands, so the stick is something that helps. That also goes for other animals that might try to attack your dog or your pet as you're outside. You can use that stick to hopefully get that animal off of your pet. One of the biggest fears that I have with having Lily, because she's so small, is birds of prey. So there's been a couple of times where birds of prey have been circling us with Lily in my arms or even on the ground, and so you have to be really careful because Lily's only 10 pounds. Any dog that's about that big or smaller can be scooped up by owls, by hawks, by eagles, and so you have to be really, really careful with that. I've also considered getting this jacket that goes over Lily that is supposed to detract birds from picking her up. Back to the coyotes too, I forgot to mention this. They actually have coyote collars for your dog that's got these big spikes on it. That not only helps with keeping coyotes from getting your dog around the neck, which is what they usually go for when they want to harm them, or other dogs also attacking your dog and harming them by biting them on the neck. So one of the things that you definitely want to do if your pet is sitting in the front seat or the back seat where there's seat belts, you want to keep them secure somehow when you're driving. One of the things that I do is I have a pet seat belt for Lily and I have it attached to her harness. So I don't want it attached to her collar, obviously, because if I have to slam on the brakes really hard, it's going to pull on her neck, and you don't want that because it could hurt them. You want that seatbelt attached to their harness, which typically the buckle is going to be on their back. And what you want to have happen is if you have to stop really quickly, it's going to pull them back with that seatbelt so that they don't go flying into the dashboard. And you need to make sure that you adjust the seatbelt properly so that it's not too long, that if you do have an accident, or if you have to put on your brakes really quickly, that they're not going to go into the dashboard or anything in front of them. You want to make sure that it's tight just enough where they can move around a little bit but not harm themselves if something happens. So earlier in the video I told you that I was gonna do a giveaway, and the giveaway is this pet seatbelt. I really believe in it and I think it's amazing to obviously keep your pet safe as you're traveling. So I want to do a giveaway to all of you guys, and in order to qualify for the entry for the giveaway, you need to do two things. One is you need to comment below and type in hashtag RVLivingDogs. And then the second thing you need to do is click on the link in the description box or the pinned comment under the title of giveaway instructions and head over to my blog and subscribe to the newsletter. Once you do those two things, you'll be entered into the giveaway. In about a week, I will select a random winner and then I'll announce it on my newsletter, over here on this pinned comment and description box announcing who the winner is, and also in the Facebook group. So if you're not a part of my Facebook group, you can also be a part of that to find out very quickly who the actual winner is. So I'm excited for whoever wins it. It's definitely something that I think everybody needs, especially to keep your pets safe. The other item that I want to talk about for pet safety is blue algae. So you might have heard in the news, especially over the last couple of years, I feel like it's been a little bit more predominant, that dogs are dying because they are going into pools of water, whether it be a pond or a lake or streams and rivers, and there's this blue algae bloom there that is very, very toxic to your pet. And so you want to make sure, of course, that blue algae isn't around. Sometimes there's signs that are posted, but sometimes there's not, because the county hasn't been made aware or tested that water to find out if the blue algae is actually present in the water. So if you see any kind of blue algae on the surface, and I'll post a picture here showing what that looks like, you want to keep your dogs away from that. Just being in the water, getting it on their skin, or ingesting it can be very toxic to your pet, and it typically leads to death. Of course, none of us want that for our pets, so you just have to be really, really careful with this one. Blue algae bloom typically happens more in the summer times, and it's caused by higher temperatures, warmer temperatures. And so I'll put a link below that explains a little bit more about blue algae so you can get yourself a little bit more familiar with that. All right, so let's go to the next topic, which is traveling with your pets in a warm climate. This is a huge one because I don't know about you, but I don't typically travel in the snow. I don't like the cold weather, and I prefer to be in a place with a warmer climate, which means that sometimes it gets a little warm inside the van, and you want to make sure that your pet is safe in there and they're not going to overheat. So there's several things that you could do to mitigate this. So one of the first things that you can do to keep the temperature down inside your van or your RV is to put shades inside of your front windows and your side windows. And then if you have windows like this, you would just, put this shade down like that. That helps to keep the heat down for sure. And then the other thing that I do is I will open up my skylight up here. I'll turn on the fantastic fan in the back, pop some windows open so there gets a nice breeze that comes through here constantly. So if it's not too warm, that actually really works well. If you do have an AC in your RV and you have a reliable power source, then you can run your AC inside of your RV and they'll stay cool with that. Now, I'm going to say this with a caveat that I actually don't trust the electrical systems at campgrounds. I don't even trust my electrical system in here with my AC to make sure that my batteries are powered long enough to keep my AC running. I have something in my van called a Voltstart, and that helps to monitor the battery level, and if the battery level gets too low, it will automatically turn on my second alternator and start charging my batteries back up. Now, I don't trust that system. I don't trust any system when it concerns the life of my pet. So I do some other things to help alleviate my concern with that. One of which is I make sure that typically I'm no more than 10 to 15 minutes away from my dog if it's going to be very high temperatures outside. I'm no more than 10 to 15 minutes away from the van so that if I need to get back quickly, I can if I see that temperatures are warming up. Now, how can I see if temperatures are warming up inside the van? Well, I use something called a Canary camera. Now, there's other cameras out there, but this is the one that I currently use. And it has video, and it also monitors the temperature inside the van. As my backup to that, see how I have all these backups? So the Canary camera is the backup to make sure that I can see her, that she's okay. I also have the Canary camera for the temperature. So I have an external temperature gauge that I put in view of the Canary camera so that I can look at it as well and make sure that the Canary camera device that monitors the temperature is accurate with the actual temperature gauge that's external that's in view. So I use those things to make sure that she's okay in here. With the Canary camera, you do have to have a Wi-Fi hotspot that is working and with a really good signal in order to be able to look at that camera and look at that footage on your phone. So it just has a phone app that you would use. That phone app connects to the cloud where the Canary device is sending that information through your hotspot to let you know what's going on inside of your RV. It also has another benefit, which is if it senses any kind of movement inside of the RV, then it will also alert you to that. So sometimes it's going to be set off by Lily just moving around. The other thing that will set it off is if somebody enters your vehicle. So it has dual benefit of monitoring your pet, but also monitoring your RV for safety purposes. This isn't something that I do because Lily just doesn't need it, but especially when you're dealing with larger dogs who tend to overheat a little bit more, they actually have some cooling mats that you can put down on their bedding and they can lay on that and keep cool. A lot of them are made with like gel materials and stuff like that that keep it nice and cool and keep their body temperature down. So I love that idea. It's super easy and it doesn't need power or anything like that. You just put it on their bedding, they lay on it, and they stay cool. Another way to keep your pets safe in the RV when it's warmer climates is to simply park in the shade. We have solar. I typically don't like to park in the shade because I always want solar energy coming into my batteries. But if it's really hot and I need to park in the shade to obviously accommodate my pet's safety and also keep her cooler and make sure she's comfortable, I'm going to park in the shade. So super easy to do. Park in the shade, put your window coverings inside the window, fantastic fan on, skylight up, windows maybe popped open a little bit. You get some nice airflow through here and they're in their shade and they keep nice and cool. All right, so on to the next topic of challenges with traveling with your pet. Now, these are very specific to what if you want to take your dog hiking somewhere, or you want to go to a restaurant and can you take your pet with you? What if you have to travel on an airplane or travel somewhere away from your RV and you can't take your dog and you need someone to take care of your pet for you? So these things happen. A lot of us who are out here are still working age and we work remotely, and sometimes we have to travel for business. So what do you do in those circumstances? So there's a company called Rover.com that you can actually use that is basically like a pet sitting service for your animal, and it's individual people who have homes. So these people will put their services up on Rover.com to showcase what they can do for your pet. So it will tell you like if they're in a home or if they take care of other pets and what pets they actually accept. And it also has reviews and ratings on there so you can see what other people have said about using this particular person's service. So I highly recommend Rover.com. This is not a sponsored video for them, but I do think that they're very useful, and I have known quite a few RVers who have used them. When you look it up, you just look in your local area where you're at currently and find someone to sit for your dog. And it could be one of those things too, you just need someone for the day. It doesn't even have to be overnight. So using Rover.com will help in that situation as well. The thing that I like about Rover.com is that it's in someone's home. Lily actually gets really nervous if I take her to a boarding facility. She's in a cage. It's very sterile. They're just, they just don't, I think, look after them as well as someone who is in a home, and they get a little bit more of, kind of the treatment that you would give them. All right, so what about restaurants? A lot of times we just want our pets to be with us, and if it's hot outside, you want to bring your dog with you. You want them to be comfortable. You don't want to leave them inside the RV. And this is something that I do all the time. I will go and search out restaurants that are dog friendly. So you can put in Google, you can put in dog friendly restaurants near me, and that will also work. But you can also go to a website called BringFido.com. Now it has a lot of other things on there besides restaurants, but specifically you can find restaurants in your area that will accommodate dogs. So a lot of times it's just patio seating, which is really nice. A lot of restaurants are actually offering that now if they have patio seating, and a lot of times they have stuff like water bowls out there and treats, and they're just super accommodating to pets. And that will also have reviews and stuff on it, so you can see which restaurants are the most friendly for your dog. But I love this service because I don't always like to keep Lily in the van. I like to be able to take her with me. I want her to experience this life just as much as I do, and she appreciates being outside. So a lot of times when we're in national forests, BLM land, any of these rural areas, we want to take our dog with us. We want them to go hiking with us, especially if they're still able to do that. Unfortunately, there are some places that don't allow that, like national parks. They typically do not allow dogs on hiking trails. There are definitely places in California too, so some states, but I tend to be on the West Coast a lot, so I know California is a big one, where they don't allow dogs on the trails or sometimes even on the beaches. So you have to look for those signposts to find out if your dog is actually allowed there. But definitely national parks are ones that you can't usually travel with your pet. Now, you can go into the national park with the pet inside your vehicle. They just can't go on the trail. So you can stay in the parking lot with them. So this is one of the things that you have to think about when you're traveling with your pet is if you want to go to a national park, which most of us do when we're traveling, and we have a pet with us, and you want to go hiking or do something inside of that park that requires you to be away from the van, then you have to do something with your dog. And this is where I was talking before, is you want to make sure your dog is comfortable and it's not going to be too hot outside. You just literally have to make the decision, can you do that? There are times when I can't do certain things because it is just too hot outside, and there's no way that even with cracking the sunroof and turning the fantastic fan on that she's going to get enough airflow through here. Many times I have to open my sliding door to make sure that she gets enough airflow, and that means I need to obviously be in the van. I can't just leave that open. Sometimes I get to do the things that I want, and sometimes I have to bypass it because I have a pet, which is one of those challenges with traveling with a pet. It does deter you sometimes from doing some of the things that you want to do because you have to make sure that they're safe and they're comfortable and they're not getting overheated. All right, so on to the next subject, which is crossing borders into Canada and Mexico with your pet. Each country is different on what they require in order to bring your pet into that country. So you'll want to look at the current restrictions and also the current requirements in order to bring your dog into Canada and Mexico. I'll put a link below that has a link to those specific sites so that you can look at that for yourself. So when I went into Mexico with Lily, I've been there twice now, they wanted a health certificate originally and also her rabies certificate. So now what's interesting is this last year, they don't actually require the health certificate. They only required the rabies certification. Now, mind you, I've never had to produce this information when I went across the border. They've never asked me for it, but obviously you want to make sure you have it just in case, because you don't want to be traveling, get to the border and not be able to cross because you don't have the proper documentation. The other thing that you'll want to think about is traveling back actually into the United States. So you want something to show that this is your pet and that you had this pet prior to going into this other country, and you're not bringing a new pet into the United States that's not documented there or doesn't have their health certificate or their vaccine shots. You definitely want to bring those things. You'll want to look at the USA website to see what it is that they require when you come in from another country. Another thing too, when you're crossing the border, is I always make sure that Lily is definitely in her seat belted harness and that she can't get up and move around when you're pulling up to the border, because the last thing you want is your dog lunging at the border agent. That's probably not going to be good, and they're going to send you to secondary to check out your vehicle even more. So I always make sure that she's tethered, that she's hopefully not barking, which she barks. You guys probably seen that before. Every time I open that window and pull up to a border, she's barking. So I try my best to keep her from not barking and just explain to them that she's probably going to bark and try to keep her quiet. But she's at least tethered and she's not going to jump around. And especially if they're going to board your van or your RV, you want to make sure that your animal is secure so they're not interfering with them actually taking a look at everything inside your RV and inspecting it. Definitely want to keep those people happy and not cause any other issues. There was one time when I was crossing from Canada back into the United States, and they were super aggravated with Lily because she was barking. Even though she was tethered in the front seat, they were really upset because she was barking. And so then they told me to go into secondary, and they boarded my van and were looking around at everything and just were upset that she was barking for some reason. But you never know what's going to set off a border agent. So it's just best to make sure that they're safe and secure, and hopefully they don't bark. So now I want to hear from you. What tips do you have to keep your pet safe, and what challenges have you dealt with when you're traveling with your pet? Go ahead and leave me a comment below. And also don't forget the giveaway. If you want that seatbelt for free for your pet, go ahead and comment below with hashtag RVLivingDogs. Subscribe to my newsletter on my blog at storychasing.com, and I will announce the winner in about a week and let you know who was the lucky winner of this seatbelt. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. Of course, if you liked this video, give me a thumbs up. Click that share button to share it with anybody else who you think might need to know some more information about traveling with their pet. And if you haven't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. All right, guys, I will see you in the next video. Bye.